Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Interview Wednesdays. We're very glad you're with us today. It is March 16th, 2022. For those people on Zoom, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please just put them in the Zoom chat window. You're also welcome to put in your personal information so you can network with other people who are on the call. For those watching on Facebook right now, thank you for joining us. Please just enter any questions you have into the comment field. I am monitoring that feed and we'll get those questions asked for you. Please note this event is being recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, you give consent for your name and picture to appear. Please note that any comments you put in the Zoom chat window do not appear in the recording. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. Back in 2008, I started a website called careerdfw.org, a website to help those who are unemployed or underemployed in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. In 2012, I started a second website called careerusa.org to help those around the United States. I have written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know. It is available on Amazon. Since 2007, I've been facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. I'll tell you about our upcoming program that we have this Friday at the end of this session. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team. And you'll hear more about that in just a moment. Well, in fact, you'll hear about that right now. So Mark, why don't you tell us a little about the practice interview team?
Wow, those moments go by fast. Thanks, Jeff. And I'm so excited that Jay's here to speak today. I use some of Jay's material and the stuff the PIT crew teaches. And let me say, first of all, that the PIT crew is absolutely free. So, for those in job transition, we're all about helping you out. Now, free does not mean we're not professionals, because we are. Every member of the PIT crew, and the PIT crew are the ones who give the interviews, who the panelists on the interview that your practice interview, they've all been hiring managers, and all of them have also been through job transition, some more than once. Like me, I was laid off 3 times the last 10 years of my career. I'd say about 90% of them are currently in job transition, so they're walking in your shoes right now. And a few, like Walt and I, are retired, and we give back in our retirement. So we have a very professional group of hiring managers who are going to give you a chance to practice your interviewing skills. And it's a very personalized and customized experience. You provide the job description that you'd like to interview against, and you provide your resume. You let us know where you are in the process, if you're early in the process or later on in the process in terms of the interview cycle. And we'll adjust and give you a practice interview that gives you a chance to be your best. The best part of the practice interview, though, is after it's done. There'll be a discussion and some feedback, which, immediately after you're done. And the recording, and all that is recorded, the video plus the feedback is recorded. The whole session takes about 1 hour and 15 minutes, 40 minutes for the interview, roughly 20 to 25 minutes for discussion, and a little bit of time for introduction. So that's how the PIT crew works. We have fixed dates and times for the interviews. So we have 2 interviews on Tuesday evening. So if you know someone who's employed who can't make this meeting right now to hear this because they work, then let them know that the PIT crew offers evening interviews after work hours on Tuesday evenings. And then there's a slot available on Wednesday afternoon right here during this Interview Wednesday presentation, 1 o'clock on Wednesday and 3 o'clock on Thursdays. So if you didn't write all that down, and all you have to do is go to dallaspitcrew.com to get all that information that I just gave you about when and where and how to sign up. So our tagline is practice early and practice often. So you can practice as early, and I encourage you to practice early as soon as you find out that you're going to be in a job search, to start practicing and getting prepared for modern interviews. And I'm sure Jay's going to talk about some of the things you need to do to prepare. But then after that, practice often. I've had some of my panelists tell me, they've done a lot of thinking about this, that it takes about 5 practice interviews before you've mastered all the aspects of interviewing, but you still may want to practice when big opportunities come up. The record is 9 practice interviews in about a year. the candidate finally did land the position that he wanted, which was a buyer for an aircraft manufacturer. So he practiced a lot and he got better every time. So, and okay, that was two-way interviews, normal video interviews. The Pit Crew also has one-way interview offering, just to give you a chance to interact with the tool, because it's very strange to do one of these one-way interviews where nobody's at the other end, there's nobody to interact with. You can't ask a question, you can't tell a joke, you can't do anything but respond to the question. So we give you a chance to practice that by giving you the questions in advance. So really, you're just going to get, you'll know what the questions are. You can just see how you do interacting with the tool. And if you were not happy with it, then we can do it again. So that's the one-way interview from the Pit Crew. Just send me an email at the usual place, dallaspitcrew@gmail.com, if you're interested. I also encourage you to link in with me, and in the chat window, I'm going to put that LinkedIn profile plus the Pit Crew email address and phone number, and just put a brief note that said we met on Interview Wednesday. So I'd like to know that we actually did meet in some forum, and it wasn't your multi-level marketing plan. All right, is there anything else I need to say, Jeff? Volunteers.
Volunteers?
Yes, volunteers. I just thought of it right when I said that. Yeah. So if you've been a hiring manager and you've got a heart for giving back to others that are in job transition as well, then I have an opportunity for you to be the interviewer and the practice interviews. And you don't have to come from any particular field. Any field is adequate. You do have to have that responsibility of hiring people as part of your professional experience. And there's no time commitment either. The panelists volunteer as well to be on the panel of a particular candidate. So you get to select which ones you want to interview. So that's the opportunity available. If you would like to volunteer, reach out to me and I'll give you some more information about that.
Mark, thank you very, very much. Let's hear a little bit about the Interview Success Workshop. Good afternoon, Walt.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a session with Jay. I'm going to tell you, I bought his book. If you haven't seen his session on interviewing, not only on interviewing, but on job search and about the playbook and that sort of thing, I definitely recommend that you pay attention to that. I don't know if any are out there recorded, Jeff, of him doing that, but Jay is a person who leaves no detail unturned. So you will be glad to hear of the things he talks about in interviewing today. So I offer interviewing help too, and I do it in a different way. I cover the fundamentals of interviewing. What is it that we do when we're interviewing? Well, we're in a sales situation and we're selling three things: who we are, what we do, and how we can help. And how can we do that in an interview, as well as differentiate ourselves from other candidates? There are some very, very common phrases that interviewers hear all the time that we want to try to remove or at least add something to. Thanking them for the time that you took with me today, and I look forward to hearing from you soon, is one that I would like to eliminate from all interviews at the end of the interview. What can we do better than that? So how do we sell those three things? So it's a very informal session. You have to be registered to attend. You will get a video of your interview. You'll also get some handouts. You'll get a handout about the things that we covered, plus other things related to interviewing and job search related to that, and a video that goes along with that as well. So you get plenty of video to look at and see. It's a matter of depending on yourself to look at yourself from the interviewer's perspective when you're trying to figure out how do you do better and how you improve. How do we do better with the interviewer? So do we feel comfortable? Not yet. So we got some preparation and practice to do to get to that stage where we can be enthusiastic and show a lot of interest in the interview. So send me an email on my walt_glass@yahoo.com and ask to register, and I'll give you availability dates. My LinkedIn page contains some more about the workshop in the About section, so you can look that up. Be glad to have you participate. Very informal. There's no need to have to sweat, have to squirm, and have to have stress and anxiety over learning. We can still have fun while we're learning. So put your learning hat on, not your mock interview hat, just your learning hat to see how we can improve. So like in basketball, I'll say if you can't dribble and you can't shoot, you're not going to make it to the floor. So you'd have to do something to do differently when we can get to that interview to be successful with that. I call it learning without squirming.
Well, thank you very, very much. All right, our speaker today, special guest speaker, very excited to hear, something new that we've done on Wednesdays. Our speaker today is Jay Fusaro. He's the principal and founder of Eureka Professional Services, where as an interview coach, he provides his clients with skills and techniques necessary to successfully conduct an efficient and effective job search. Jay graduated from Northeastern University in Boston. He is a CPA in the state of Texas, as well as a certified SMU business coach. He was the vice president of financial planning for Alliance Data during their successful IPO. Jay is a two-time award-winning author. His book is titled From the Other Side of the Desk, a practical guide to shortening your job search. I've got a copy of this, and I'll tell you that there's not one thing in that book that I disagree with. If you follow what's in his book, you will land a job, you will get a job. I mean, it's just a great book. After 24 years living in Dallas, he and his wife, Rosemary, moved to Eureka Springs, Arkansas. So Jay is joining us from Arkansas. So please welcome Jay Fusaro. Jay, thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Jeff. And hats off to you, Mark, and Walt for all you do. You do a great service to the community, and I certainly appreciate it. And I know others do as well. So thank you for all of that work. And thank you for having me, and for everyone that's watching. I appreciate your time this afternoon in participating in this, and hopefully you find it beneficial. So as Jeff said, I was in the corporate world for about 29 years, and I've hired dozens and interviewed hundreds of people. And I've been an interview coach for 9 years, and I've had several hundred clients successfully land. The average interview success rate is about 25%, meaning most people will interview with 4 companies, land 1 offer, industry average for a professional. My clients are at a 62% interview success rate. And it's not because there's any magic bullet to it. We're going to go over a lot of the reasons why this afternoon. It's because they're better prepared. You've heard about preparation this morning, and I'm sure from other seminars that are taught, it's all about preparation and being properly prepared. And if you do what we're going to talk about this afternoon, you will separate yourself from the competition, you will be better prepared, and you will land faster. So a couple of things to keep in mind. Who's in charge of your job search? Who's in charge? It's not Jeff, Mark, or Walt, or any other friends or mentors. It's you. It's not a coach. Sometimes when people believe if they're going to pay me to help them land and coach them through the process, that I'm in charge of their job search. I'm not. And I tell them that up front. You're in charge of your job search. It takes hard work, preparation, and commitment to land, to get an offer. I'm going to show you this afternoon how I believe you should best prepare for an interview, and then it's going to be up to you to decide how much hard work you want to put into it and how committed you are to the process. So this afternoon, what we're going to talk about are the 6 keys to a successful interview. So I'm going to tick them off, list them off one at a time, and then go over each one. Each one needs to be successfully executed during the interview to lead to an offer. It's not 5 out of 6. It's not, well, I think I got 4 out of 6. If you do all 6 of these things, the chance of you moving forward towards an offer goes up substantially. So here's what they are. You need to be able to establish chemistry with the person that you're talking to. So a couple of other ground rules, if you will. When I'm talking about talking to someone on the interview, I don't mean just the hiring manager. Everyone you talk to gets the treatment that we're going to talk about this afternoon. It's not just the hiring manager. So it's everybody that you talk to, you need to build chemistry with, Because if someone's interviewing you, they get a vote. If you're going to talk to 4 or 5 people during a day or in a panel, they all get a vote, not just the hiring manager. Everyone gets a vote. So you need to build chemistry with everyone, and we'll talk about how to do that. Chemistry, you need to demonstrate your technical competence. Those 2 things need to be present before the interview is going to move forward in the interviewer's mind. Chemistry and technical competence. If those 2 are not established and you haven't been successful in those, the interview is really not going to be successful regardless of what happens later on. So establish chemistry, demonstrate your technical competence, then it's going to come down to these 4 situations or questions. You need to have a good answer about tell me about yourself, demonstrate proper enthusiasm, be able to talk about why you left every job on your resume, and be able to talk about compensation. You do those 6 things, the chance of you moving forward towards an offer go up substantially. Think about the object of the game on the interview. What's the object of the game on the interview? It's to do everything that you can to honestly answer questions to move forward towards an offer. That's what you're there to do. Get an offer. So you're in control. You can accept, reject, negotiate. No offer, no options. So do everything that you can to move forward to get an offer. I've interviewed candidates and I can tell they have a look of assessment on their face. They're assessing me, they're assessing the situation. Don't do that. Assess the company, assess the opportunity after the interview is over, not during the interview. Like was said earlier, you're in sales mode. You're there to do everything that you can to move forward towards an offer. Keep in mind, you would not be on the interview if they did not believe on paper you could do the job. That's going to come into play later in some of the skills and techniques we're going to talk about. But keep in mind, you would not be on the interview unless they believed on paper you could do the job. So chemistry. How do you build chemistry with someone that you don't know? It's not by dominating the conversation and doing all of the talking. That's not how you build chemistry with someone. You build chemistry with someone by asking them questions, getting them to talk a little bit about themselves or the company, and showing interest in their background and in the company. So the way you do that is by doing research. You have got to do research on the company and the person prior to the interview. There's 2 things you need to have before you go on the interview. You have got to have a job description and you've got to have an agenda of the day's interview. If you get a call from HR and they say, show up at 2 o'clock for an interview, don't just assume that it's going to be a Zoom meeting or an in-person interview with just that person. It may not be. It might be with 3 or 4 other people. And if you're not prepared for that, you're at a huge disadvantage. So before you show up, and when I say show up, it's either in person or in Zoom, I'm not going to differentiate. Before you show up for an interview, be sure you have an agenda of who you're going to talk with so you can do research on each person and have a job description. We'll talk about why that's important. It's not just for the obvious reason. There's a role that plays, and we'll talk about that later. So you're going to look up each person that you're going to interview with, know a little bit about their background, where'd they go to school, where'd they live before, how long have they been with the company. If someone's been with the company a long time, 5 years or more, you can say to them, I see that you've been with the company for 5 years. Clearly you enjoy it. What is it about the company that you like so much? If they've been in their current role or been with the company for 9 months, say, I see you're fairly new to the company or your position. How do you like it so far? Get them talking about themselves a little bit. That's how you're going to help build chemistry. Do research on the company. You have got to do research on the company prior to the interview. If it's a publicly traded company, if their stock is publicly traded, go to the Investor Relations tab on the website, click on Quarterly Earnings Call, take an hour, listen to the quarterly earnings call. It's going to be with the CEO, CFO, maybe a division head. They're going to talk about the company's last quarter financial performance, as well as goals for the future, strategic direction, new products that they're going to be developing, new offices that they're going to be opening, whatever the case might be. You're also going to learn about how the company talks, what language they use, what's their internal jargon, especially if you're changing industries. So an example of that would be when I was interviewing with MoneyGram, I understood the financial aspects of MoneyGram, the money transfer business, but I really didn't understand how they look at the business. So when I listened to a quarterly earnings call, I learned that MoneyGram looks at the money transfer business the way airlines do, in corridors. You know, Dallas to Paris, Rome to Prague. How profitable are these corridors? And they look at migration patterns. Where are people moving to and from? Because that's going to influence which way money's moving. So when I was on the interview, I brought up a couple topics about their profitable corridors, even though I wasn't from that industry. So I was not trying to pass myself off as an industry expert, but I wanted them to know that I took the time to learn a little bit about the industry and use a little bit about the jargon that they use to make them more comfortable. Also, so I didn't come across as I'm not from here. What I mean by that is when I was with Alliance Data, a loyalty marketing company, I was interviewing someone from Frito-Lay and for a finance job, and they were talking about salty snacks and sweet drinks and things of that nature. What that was telling me was, how long is it going to take to train this person to think differently? Rather than using generic language, which is what I believe you should do on an interview when you're changing industries, use generic language for your examples. Don't use industry jargon from where you're coming from. Don't use acronyms and jargon from your prior industry when you're talking to someone in another industry. That's not going to help you build chemistry with that person. But doing research on the person, doing research on the company, if they're not a public company, go to their website. Look at, they're going to have something in there about recent announcements, about offices they've opened, whatever the case might be. Maybe they've added somebody to their management team recently that you can bring up as a topic of conversation. It's critical that you show an interest in the company. So if they say, what do you know about our company? You can talk about it intelligently and have a conversation with the person about the company. That's how you build chemistry with someone. Do research on the person and do research on the company so you can have a conversation with them and ask them questions about it. So that's the first thing, chemistry. Technical competence. I think Walt talked a little bit about a playbook concept. The way you demonstrate your technical competence on an interview is through a tool that I call a playbook. What's a playbook? A playbook is everything that you're going to say, everything goes into a Word document, everything. We're going to talk about some of these things. Tell me about yourself. Why'd you leave a company? Why do you want to work here? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Whatever the case might be, whatever you believe you're going to be asked on an interview gets put into a Word document, scripted out and timed and spoken into your iPhone. For example, this presentation is in this Word document. This Word document here is this presentation. I'm not talking off the top of my head. The whole presentation is scripted out. You speak it into your iPhone so you become familiar with it and you listen to how you sound when you're answering questions. You listen for certain words that you may or may not want to use, diction, pronunciation, phraseology, emphasis, tone, enthusiasm. Those are the benefits of speaking it into your iPhone and listening to it back, in addition to basically beating it into your head. You need to know the presentation of yourself cold. You're going into a very important meeting to talk about yourself and your career and your background with a 2-page document, your resume that you prepared. You need to know that information cold. You shouldn't have to think when someone asks you about something on your resume, you shouldn't have to think about it. You should just be able to give the example. If tell me about yourself should just come off the top of your head, but it's going to get there by repetition, by speaking your answers into your iPhone and your playbook, into your iPhone, listening to it back. It's going to become part of you. You know, before I do this presentation this morning, walking the dog, I listened to it on my iPhone because I want to be really comfortable and familiar with it. Years ago, I found myself using a phrase, I think. I think is usually a very weak phrase. When you include I think in an answer, it sounds very weak, very unsure. I believe is a better phrase to use when you're giving an answer. That may sound like a small thing, but things like that are going to be picked up from speaking your answers into your iPhone and listening to them back. Script out your answers and time them. Once you script them out and speak them out loud and time them, every answer should be between 20 and 45 seconds. Unless it's a highly technical answer, it really shouldn't be longer than 45 seconds. Remember, you would not be on the interview unless they didn't believe on paper you could do the job. So they know you have this background. They want to see if there's chemistry, see if you can articulate your technical competence and a few other things. But you don't need to bludgeon the person with really long-winded answers on basic questions. If you script it out and you time them and you get them down to about 30, 45 seconds, that's going to build a tight, concise answer. People have different acronyms for this. I call it SAR, situation, action, result. If you can frame up your answers in a situation, action, result format, it's going to make for a much tighter answer. Most people on an interview ad lib 80% of what they're going to say and prepare for 20. That's part of the reason why the interview success rate is about 25%, because people aren't prepared. So turn that around. Most people will ad lib 80% about what they're going to say in an interview and prepare for 20. So don't do that. Prepare for 80%. You can't prepare for everything. And then, you're going to have to ad lib 20, but the ad lib is going to come from a position of preparation because you're going to be prepared with your playbook. The benefit about writing out your answers is that you know where the beginning, middle, and end are in an answer. You know when you've answered a question. So you're going to know when to be quiet and not run on, I call it chatty Cathy, because you're nervous. So it'll help you end an answer. What else goes into your playbook? I suggest that you take a soft copy of your resume, copy that into your playbook, and every bullet point on your resume, every bullet point has a 20-second answer for that bullet point on your resume. Every bullet point, if you have summary of qualifications at the top of your resume, strategic thinker, great leader, whatever summary of qualifications you may have at the top of your resume, every one of those bullet points should have a 20-second answer for why it's there. Not every answer that you're going to put for your resume, not every story is going to be unique. Each story may not be unique, and that's fine. The point is that you have a story for every bullet point on your resume. Because if somebody points to something on your resume and says, this is really interesting, tell me more about this, you can't start with You need to start with the appropriate answer for that bullet point, right? So be prepared. I've asked candidates, tell me more about this bullet point on their resume, and they looked, perplexed, and they had to reread the bullet point and then think about what the answer was. So don't do that. Copy your resume into your playbook, every bullet point, have an answer for it. Try to put it in the SAR format if possible. The other reason why you need a soft copy of the job description is not just for obvious reasons about knowing the position that you're going to be applying for. Get a soft copy of the job description, copy that into your playbook, and then for about 80% of the bullet points that are on the job description, you should have a story from your background. Again, the stories aren't going to be unique. They're not going to be unique to your resume. They may not be unique within the job description, each bullet point. The point is that you have an answer for 100% of what's on your resume and about 80% of what's on the job description. You're never going to have a story for 100% of what's on a job description. That's unrealistic. But if you have it for 80%, you're going to be very well prepared. Because think about, where are most of the questions going to come from during an interview? Most of the questions that you're going to get, aside from situational questions, are going to come from your resume or the job description. So if you have a short story for 100% of what's on the resume, 80% of what's in the job description, you're going to be very well prepared to answer questions on a go-forward basis. So chemistry, technical competence need to be present. If they are, these next four points become critical. These 4 points I got from a very good recruiter in the Metroplex. His name is Jim Ashworth. And with his permission, I use them in the book and I use them as part of my presentation. And I firmly believe that in the strength of how important they are. Jim has been a recruiter for decades, and he tracked thousands of candidates, why they got a job. He would get a job opening. He would screen candidates. He would help them prepare their resume. He would prepare the candidates, send them on the interview. 4 or 5 candidates, the hiring manager would hire one. Jim wanted to know, why did that one person get hired and the others didn't, when they were all prepared the same? And it came down to these 4 things, that the candidate that got the job nailed all 4 of these. And as I said, it's tell me about yourself, enthusiasm, why you left, and compensation. So tell me about yourself. I'm sure you've heard a lot of answers, about tell me about yourself. You need to put together what's best for you. I'll tell you how I prepare my candidates, my clients, for tell me about yourself. What is the intent of the question, tell me about yourself? What's the intent of the question? The intent is not for the candidate to open up the fire hose and tell the interviewer how great they are, or give them their life story. That's not what the question is. I believe the intent of the question, tell me about yourself, is, can you answer a simple question concisely? That's what tell me about yourself is. Can you answer a simple question concisely? Or take me through your resume as another way to get started with an interview. Take me through your resume. Don't read your resume if you're asked that question. I've asked candidates, take me through your resume, when I was interviewing them, and they would look down and read to me their resume. Well, that tells me a couple of things. They should know I've read their resume, first of all. Second of all, they're grossly unprepared. they're in a meeting, an important meeting with a 2-page document that they put together. If they can't give me a good summary of that document in 45 or 60 seconds, it doesn't give me a lot of confidence that they're going to be prepared when we're meeting with a CFO or CEO or meeting with me to go over something important. It shows a lot of preparation. So part of your playbook and what should be spoken into your iPhone is to be able to take somebody through your resume in about 45 seconds, bottom to top, spending the most time on the job that's most relevant to the job that you're interviewing for, which means about 10 or 15 seconds, glancing at your resume, but being able to walk somebody through your resume very simply from a high level. It's can you answer a simple question concisely? So how should you answer, tell me about yourself, or how do I believe you should answer, tell me about yourself? I have my clients break up, tell me about yourself, into 3 very short segments. The first I call the early years. I grew up in, went to school at, moved to Dallas in if you're not from Dallas. So I would say I grew up in New Jersey through high school, went to school in Boston at Northeastern University, moved down to Dallas in 91. First 31 years of my life in 10 seconds. That's really all they need to know. The next segment would start with, most recently I did this. Most recently I did this, then name 2 or 3 things from the job description that you most recently did. The third segment, I would start with the skills that I'm looking to use in my next opportunity are, and name 2 or 3 skills in the job description that genuinely excite you that you're looking forward to using. And that's how I would answer, tell me about yourself. Keep it short, concise. It's a conversation starter. It's a table setter. It's, can you answer a simple question concisely? I've ended interviews, phone interviews, with candidates who were going on for 2.5, 3 minutes with the answer to, tell me about yourself. I was with one of my direct reports, we were phone screening a candidate. I asked her, so tell me about yourself. And we're getting close to 3 minutes on the answer. And I hit mute and I said to my direct report, we're not hiring her. You can end the interview whenever and however you want, but I'm leaving. I'm going to go do something else. And when after the interview, she said, why'd you do that? I said, if she can't answer, tell me about yourself in like a minute, a very simple question, what's it going to be like when we ask her something complicated? She'll never be able to get to the point. So that's what it is. Can you answer a simple question concisely? Tell me about yourself. Demonstrating proper enthusiasm. I've interviewed candidates for very good jobs. And during the interview, I had no idea if they wanted the job. None. They were poker faced. I never saw their teeth. They never smiled. They never displayed any emotion. Even one candidate at the end of the interview, I said, if I were to offer you the job, would you take it? And he thought for a second. And he said, yeah, I think I would. I think I would take it. It's terrible. It's a terrible answer. So how do you demonstrate proper enthusiasm on an interview? It's not wagging your tail like a puppy. I'm so glad to be here. It's being professional. The interview is not a poker game. It's not whoever's the most stoic wins. It's okay to be upbeat, positive, show it on your face, be energetic, give a brief enthusiasm statement to each person you're going to meet with at the start of the interview, before the interview starts. And it would go something like this. I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me. I'm very excited about the opportunity, particularly as it relates to, name 2 things from the job description that genuinely excite you, particularly as it relates to this and that, because I believe I have the knowledge, skills, and ability to make a significant contribution to your team. Now, the last part of that enthusiasm statement is critical because I believe I can make a significant contribution to your team. As I said before, who is the interview about? The interview is not about you. The interview is not about the candidate. The interview is about whoever you're talking to. If you have a day of interviewing lined up and you're going to interview with HR, a peer, a subordinate, and a hiring manager, you give each person that enthusiasm statement, especially about, I believe I can make a significant contribution to the team, because what you're telling the person is, I know the interview is not about me. The interview is about you. Each person that you talk to has a definition in their mind about what the problem is for that position. And by you telling them that you believe you can make a significant contribution to the team, tells them that you know the interview is not about you, it's about them. When I was interviewing candidates, when I was in the corporate world interviewing candidates, and I would be talking to candidates and they would say, well, this opportunity is really good for me because this allows me to work for a public company, allows me to take the next step in my career, allows me to utilize skills that I haven't used before. Well, I don't care. As the hiring manager, I don't care how great the job is for you. I have the problem. I have an opening. The candidate needs to put themselves forward as the solution to the manager's problem. So by saying that phrase at the end of your enthusiasm statement, because I believe I can make a significant contribution to your team, you're telling the person that you know the interview is not about you, and you deliver it early, before the meeting really gets started, before, whether it's a Zoom meeting, in-person meeting, before it really gets started. That's when I would deliver my enthusiasm statement, very early in the process. Why you left. Think about the intent of the question, why you left. The intent of the question is not, I want every dirty, dark secret from your professional past. That's not the intent of the question. The intent of why you left is, it's an attitude question. It's an attitude question. What is your attitude to a negative situation, leaving a company? Do you have a negative attitude towards your employer, a boss, company, a peer, a subordinate, whatever? If you're interviewing with HR, let's assume it's not for an HR position, assume it's for something else, marketing, accounting, engineering, whatever. HR, a person in HR is not qualified to judge your technical competence for the job. That's up to the hiring manager. What the person in HR is very qualified to do is to judge your attitude and fit with the company. Most likely, the person in HR is going to ask you why you left, or a recruiter is going to ask you why you left. It's an attitude question. They're judging your attitude towards a prior employer. So you need to be sure that you do not play the victim card. You assign no blame to a boss, a company, or a situation. That's not what they want to hear. You need to have a positive attitude. Let me give you an example before I suggest to you how to answer the question. A friend of mine, a very competent finance executive, was looking for work. I just happened to find an opportunity with a Fortune 100 company in Dallas, and I knew the head of HR, the EVP of HR, and I referred him to the position. He was very qualified and got an interview, and he was going to have a full day of interviewing with the company. He was getting an interview with HR, the CEO, several members of the executive team, and several board members, full day of interviewing. And he and I had talked about his attitude towards his prior employer. I thought he was a little bit bitter about it. And he said, no, I'm not, I'm over that. I said, okay. Went on the interview, and he called me about 10:30 that morning. And, we spoke, and he said, hey, the head of HR ended the interview. he canceled the rest of the day's interview. He said, can you find out why? He says, I'm shocked. I said, okay, I'll find out why. So I called my friend and I said, hey, what happened? And he said, oh, he was a very qualified candidate. But when I asked him why he left his last job, he gave me what I thought was a pretty good answer, but I could tell there was something more there. So I scratched the surface a little bit, and he's bitter. He's bitter towards his prior employer. And we just can't have that here. If he's bitter towards a prior employer, he's gonna at some point be bitter here. And we can't have that. So I just thought it'd be best to end the interview and not waste everybody's time. So I want you to think about that for a second. Somebody missed out on a terrific job opportunity. Great job, great fit for him, because he couldn't drop being bitter about a prior employer. So like we have said before, you're in sales mode when you're on the interview. It's not a confessional. You're there to be honest, but it's not a confessional. You'd be amazed when I've asked candidates why they left. You'd be amazed at what people say, like completely inappropriate things and things that absolutely knock them out of the box. So have a scripted out answer for why you left. Do not ad lib why you left. Every position on your resume, you need to have a scripted out answer for why you left. About 45 seconds. You be sure to answer the question. So here's the frame up for why you left. The way I look at it is, you're all familiar with the bell curve, right? So the way I look at it is an upside down bell curve, meaning start off with a high point, answer the question why you left, and then end on a high point. Start with what I call 10 seconds of lipstick on the answer. Be positive, and I'll give you a suggested line to use in a second. But basically, be positive. I learned a lot. I contributed a lot. I really enjoyed my time there. Then answer the question why you left. We had a reduction in force, so myself and several others left the company. Then end on a high note. It's a really good company, and I still have a lot of good friends there. You need to answer the question, but sandwich it between two positive statements, so that people know that you have a positive attitude towards your prior employer. It's an attitude question. They're looking to detect if you have a negative attitude towards a prior employer. Now, Jim Ashworth suggests, and I agree, especially for your last job, to start with the phrase, "I'm glad you asked." And when Jim first told me that, I thought, that's a really strange way to start the answer for why you left a company, is "I'm glad you asked." That's odd. But the reason is, if you start with "I'm glad you asked," you're setting the other person up for nothing bad is going to come next, and I have a good attitude about this situation. An example is this. I was interviewing with a company, with the CEO of a company, and he happened to have an HR background. So of course he asked me why I left Alliance Data. And I said, well, I'm glad you asked. And he stopped me. And he said, why did you start that answer with "I'm glad you asked"? And I said, well, I'm glad you asked. I really enjoyed my time there. I was there for 12 years, helped take the company public. We grew revenue 10 times while I was there. I learned a lot and I contributed a lot. We got a new CFO. He wanted to bring in his own team. So myself and 6 others left the company. But it's a great company and I still have a lot of friends there. That is an appropriate answer for why you left. Every job on your resume, you need to have a scripted out, timed answer for why you left. Do not ad lib. I've met with recruiters who will walk you down your resume, job by job by job by job. not only what did you do and what skills did you use and possess and what you like and not like about the job, but every job was why you left. And what they're looking for is to see if you have any kind of negative attitude, if you're bitter, if you play a victim card, if you assign blame, any of that type of stuff. That's why you need to script it out. Be positive. 10 seconds of lipstick on the front end, answer the question, be truthful, and give enough information to answer the question so there's not a follow-up, and then end with 10 seconds of a positive statement. That's why you left. Compensation. So entire books have been written about compensation and how to handle a compensation situation. I don't believe it's that complicated. There are basically two ways that you're going to be asked compensation. And I don't believe whoever mentions money first loses. I don't believe that. And you need to answer the question. Keep in mind, on an interview, especially a phone screen or your first interview with HR, when they ask you about compensation, they're not negotiating with you. They're not extending you a job offer, and they're not negotiating. They're asking you compensation because it's simply a red light, green light for the interview. It's, are we going to move forward or not on this interview? Candidates knock themselves out of the box real early in the process on compensation because they give a poor answer to it, and they immediately eliminate themselves from the opportunity. As we said before, you're there to get an offer so you can accept, reject, negotiate. That's what you're there to do. No offer, no options. So how is compensation usually asked? It's usually asked basically in one of two ways. Either what were you making in your last opportunity, or what are you looking to make in your next opportunity? People can dress it up and put different phraseology on it, but it's basically one of those two things. What were you making? What do you want to make? If someone asks, what were you making in your last position? Most people would say, in my last job, I was making $75,000, period. Okay, you answered the question, but don't put a period there. Put a comma, not a period. Put a comma and then ask a question. They brought up compensation. You answered the question. Now you have a right to ask a question. So if they ask, what were you making in your last opportunity? I believe a better answer is, in my last opportunity, I was making $75,000. Is that within the range of this position? Ask, is that within the range of this position? Then they're going to say one of two things, yes or no. If they say yes, say that's fine, that's great, and drop it, leave it. You now know that $75,000 is somewhere within the range. That's all you need to know. It's a red light, green light. It's, are we moving forward or not? They're not negotiating. They're not making you an offer. So drop it if they say yes. If they say, actually, no, that's a little high, I would say, that's fine. I'm very interested. What is the range? Now, you need to know before you go on the interview what your floor is to do the job. But I suggest you have a pretty broad floor, because if you get an offer, you can negotiate potentially for more money or for other things. You can negotiate base bonus, signing bonus, job title, PTO, right? Stock, if it's a public company. Those are all things that you can negotiate to bring up your compensation. But if they say, actually 75 is a little more than what we're looking to pay, I would say, that's fine. I'm very interested. Be prepared and say, that's fine. I'm very interested in the opportunity. What is the range? Well, we're looking to pay more between 65 and 70. I would say, that's fine. I'm very interested in the opportunity. You're not agreeing to anything. All you're saying is, I want to keep talking about the job. Because if you knock it out of the park, do a great job, you're the candidate, they love you, everything's great, you might be able to move it up negotiating. And then if not, you can turn down the offer, but at least you're in charge. You're not getting knocked out of the box early. So that's how I would answer, what were you making? Give an amount. I was making $75,000, put a comma. Is that within the range of this position? Yes, it is. Great, drop it. No, it's not. Say, what is the range? I'm very interested in the opportunity. Let them tell you. If they give you a number that's a few thousand lower, I would say, that's fine. I'm very interested in talking about it. The reason that you need to be prepared is because if they say, no, that's a little high, you don't have, what I call, I just bit a lemon face on and are all disappointed. They can tell that on your face or in your tone, and you're going to be eliminated. Don't eliminate yourself from competition, from getting an offer at that stage. That's not a good thing to do. Try to get an offer and move towards a negotiation. If they ask you, what are you looking to make in your next opportunity? Give a range. Just don't give a dollar amount. It sounds very dictatorial. If they say, well, what are you looking to make in your next opportunity? Don't say, well, my next job, I'm looking to make 80,000. I mean, what's that based on? That's a bad answer. A better answer is, and it's critical, quite frankly, that you start with the phrase, based on the responsibilities of this position, I would be looking for somewhere between. It's critical that you start with, based on the responsibilities of this position, because what you're saying is, what I was making is not important. Whether I was making a lot less or whether I was making a lot more, or what my personal circumstance is, doesn't matter. What matters is, based on the responsibilities of this position, I would be looking for somewhere between. Give a range. You can give a $10,000 range, maybe even a $15,000 range. I would say I would be looking for somewhere between $75,000 and $85,000. Is that within the range of this position? Then they're going to say the same thing, yes or no. Yes, it is. Great, drop it. No, it's not. I would say, that's fine. I'm very interested. What is the range of the position? Well, we're looking to pay probably about 70,000. That's fine. I'm very interested in continuing to talk about the opportunity. Move the conversation forward. You're there to move towards an offer. So those are the two ways that I would talk about compensation. Never bring in personal circumstance, ever. I was discussing compensation with a candidate one time, and he actually said to me, I said, what are you looking to make? And he said, well, my wife is pregnant and we're looking to move into another house. So I'm looking for this much money. Horrible answer. His personal circumstance has nothing to do with the job opportunity. Nothing. That's why it's really important to start with, based on the responsibilities of this position. I'm talking about this job, not what I was making, what I hope to make, what I want to make. It's all irrelevant. Based on the responsibilities of this position, what I would be looking, based on the responsibilities of this position, what I would be looking for is something between $75,000 and $85,000. Is that within the range of this position? That's how I would answer. What are you looking to make in your next opportunity? I would like to give one more point, Jeff, if I could. Is that all right? Okay.
Yes, please, go ahead.
So a seventh key is this. Think about why you're on the interview. Now you're thinking, that's painfully obvious. I know why I'm on the interview, because I have a job description and that's telling me why I'm on the interview. And I'm going to say, not necessarily. When you're on an interview, the interview is like a giant target. Your job is to find out, where is the bullseye on the target. The bullseye for the person that you're talking to is all that matters. Remember, we said earlier, the interview is not about you. They are not there to solve your problem of being in transition. That's not why you're on the interview. You're on the interview because they have the problem. The company has a problem. If you're going to enter, specifically, it's the hiring manager, but everyone that's talking to you has a perspective for what the best candidate is for that job. You need to find out what that person's rock in their shoe is. What do they believe the problem is, and what's the solution to why this position is open? Again, if you're talking to, in the same day, if you're talking to HR, a peer, a subordinate, and the hiring manager, they're all not going to have the same perspective on what is the best candidate. HR might believe that they need somebody that has great leadership skills. Maybe there's a lot of turnover in the department. The peer is going to want to know, do you play well with others? You know, if we're behind, are you going to stay late and help me out? The subordinate's going to want to know what's your management style. The hiring manager might want to know just your technical skills. Can you get the job done at all costs? So I call this, and when I talk to my clients and in the book, the key question to ask early. So I'll state the question and then I'll suggest where you ask it. The question is this: what do I need to accomplish in the first 3 to 6 months for you to say I did an outstanding job? What do I need to accomplish in the first 3 to 6 months for you to say I did an outstanding job? I've asked candidates, did you ask that question on an interview? They would say, yes, I did. I would say, how did you ask it? And they said, what do I need to do for you to say I did a really good job? That's not the question. The question needs to be pointed, needs to be specific, needs to be personal. What do I need to accomplish in the first 3 to 6 months for you to say I did an outstanding job? What you're saying to the person that you're talking to is, when you scrape it all away, what are the key attributes that you believe a candidate needs to have to do this job? And I'm telling you, if you talk to 4 different people separately during a day's interview, you're not going to get the same answer. And that's okay, because everybody has a different perspective on what the definition of success is for that job. The reason that you need to ask that question is a lot of candidates take a cookie cutter approach to the interview. I'm going to present myself and my skills in a certain way, and everybody's going to get the same presentation. You can't do it that way because everybody has a different perspective. So here's where all the preparation comes into play. You've got your playbook. You've got all these short stories in your playbook and in your head from your resume, from the job description. You've got leadership stories and other soft technique and skill stories and attributes, right? All these things from the job description, from your resume, questions that you believe you're going to get asked. You've got a 30-second short story for each one of them. They're talking to you because they believe on paper you can do the job. They saw something on your resume that jives with the job description. So the chance of them answering that question and having something totally in left field, not on your resume, not on the job description, is really small. Their answer to that question has to be from, usually it's going to be from one of those 2 documents, most likely. You're going to be prepared to answer it. Now you know what is really important to the person that I'm talking to. What do they see as critical skill set in the candidate for this job? If the answer to that question is, Well, we've had a lot of turnover in the department, so we really need somebody who can hire good people, lead people, and be a good manager and that type of stuff. Well, you're not going to bombard that person with what a great technician you are. You're going to talk about all your leadership skills. When you talk to the hiring manager, and he's basically going to say, I need somebody that can crawl on glass and meet deadlines and get the job done at all costs. Well, you're not going to talk to the hiring manager about, what a great leader and motivator of people you are, right? He's not going to care. So everybody gets a vote. You need to find out what that person believes is the problem, and then bring up skills and attributes and stories that you possess to get that person comfortable that you're the best candidate for the job. Because sometimes people, if you're going to interview with 4 people, and if it's a type of company where all 4 people need to vote thumbs up, and if you get 1 vote thumbs down, sometimes it's because you just didn't hit the nail on the head with that one person, or it's because you didn't establish chemistry with that one person, is usually what it is. So by asking that question, what do I need to accomplish in the first 3 to 6 months for you to say, I did an outstanding job? Well, it's not going to be because they don't understand if you can do the job or not, because you've asked them, and then you're going to articulate that answer. And then if you've built chemistry with that person, it can't be because you didn't establish chemistry with them, right? So if you do these things on the interview, the chance of you moving forward to an offer go up substantially. So I'd be glad to take any questions you might have.
So
Hey, Jay, I have a question. What is the name of your book?
It is From the Other Side of the Desk. It's on Amazon.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would say, Jay, it may be kind of expanding a little bit on what you were talking about, but one of the things I try to remember is the interview starts when you drive into the parking lot and ends when you drive out of the parking lot. Lots of times I've seen interview teams, and I've done it before myself, is you ask the front desk receptionist afterwards, how did this person treat you? How were they when they came in? I've seen recruiters that follow you out to your car to say goodbye, but what they're really doing is looking to see how messy your car is. I need you so that, kind of remember that mindset that the interview starts when you drive in the parking lot. Do you come in unkempt and then, you go to the bathroom in the company to tuck in your shirt and put your tie on and those type of things that, you're kind of always on watch. That's not really answering questions, but kind of the whole interview situation.
That's true. And one thing I'll add to that, everything that you said is true. I know some HR folks that what they would do with candidates is walk them around the facility and get them to lower their guard. The candidate would think, oh, this is going really well. They're showing me around. And really what the HR person is doing is try to get them out of that meeting setting, try to get them to lower their guard to see what the real person's like and probe a little bit there. So you're absolutely right. You are 100% on the interview from the second you drive into the parking lot to the second you leave. You're right.
Hey, Jay, would you suggest in your opening statement ending with your number 7? Like, get, the little bit about yourself and then ask what would make me successful? Would you put it there or would you put it somewhere else?
So thank you for the question, because I should have said where that goes. So where that question goes, what do I need to do in the first three to 6 months for you to say I did an outstanding job? Where I suggest it goes is you're going to meet, talk about, weather and traffic, give your enthusiasm statement right away. Then they're most likely going to say either some form of tell me about yourself or take me through your resume. Do that. Most likely then they're going to talk about the position that's available. Let them go over the position that's available. After they go over the position and before the real meat of the interview starts, I would say, I do have one question. And they're going to most likely say, sure, go ahead. Then I would ask that question right there before they start firing a lot of questions at you, because what you're trying to get from that person is what's their perspective. Are you looking for hard skills, soft skills? Really, what do they believe is the crux of the situation for why the position's open? So that's where I would ask it. Thank you for asking the question.
Great, thank you.
Great question. Monica, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, great presentation, Jay. I really enjoyed it. I wanted to follow up on your suggestion for the script, if you will, and just see what suggestions you have for balancing being, very genuine and spontaneous with having your pad answers memorized. Because I know sometimes when you're memorizing pad answers, sometimes it comes off as a little bit stilted and not spontaneous, at least it would for me.
So that's part of the challenge. You need to be prepared. And here's what you need to think about. This is what I think about, and I hope it comes through, is even though you may have heard your answers or said your answers 100 times, it's the first time the other person's hearing it. So you need to deliver it in a way that you understand this is the first time the other person's hearing it. So I've been doing this 9 years, and I've given this presentation, hundreds of times, whether it's in this forum or to clients, hundreds of times. But before I give a presentation, I'd be sure to say to myself, the people that I'm talking to haven't heard what I'm going to say. So even though I've gone over it hundreds of times, this is the first time you're hearing it. So it needs to come across that way. So that's part of the challenge of coming across prepared, but not sounding rote and mundane.
Jay, so one of the things you said pretty early was do not assess during the interview, and that resonated with me because I hear all the time people say, well, you're interviewing the company as well, but I think that belies the subtlety of the situation. Would you expand more on that comment? Do not
Sure, I'll
assess
give you
during
a couple examples, and that's a great point. Like you said, you're there in full-blown sales mode, period. I've interviewed candidates, and they have a look of absolute assessment on their face. I don't know how to describe it, but it is like this inquisitive look. They're assessing the environment, they're assessing me, they're assessing the organization. You can just tell they're not focused on the meeting, on the task at hand. So be conscious of that and don't do it. Yes, in the back of your head, of course, you're assessing things. What is the environment? Do I have chemistry with the hiring manager? Is the hiring manager always being interrupted during meetings? I've been on interviews where it's a fire drill. Every 10 minutes, they're barging into the conference room to, ask the CFO a question. And you can't let that bother you as a candidate. You can't, but you're assessing that situation of, this is hell on wheels here. Nothing can wait. Everything is a fire drill. Do you want to work in that environment? Or watch your questions that you ask on an interview. I was with a company, we happened to be going through a lawsuit, and a candidate asked me about the lawsuit. Completely inappropriate. Not only could I not talk about the lawsuit, but I'm thinking to myself, do you want the job, or do you think you're with the Wall Street Journal? I mean, like, what are you doing here? If that's that much of a concern to you, do your own research on the topic and you make a determination if you want to work for the company or not. But don't bring up pointed, uncomfortable, difficult questions on the interview. You're there to move towards an offer. So like you said, Mark, the assessment thing, don't wear it on your face. because people can tell. You're there to sell yourself and get an offer.
Well, thanks for that. I have another comment too about answering the question. I don't know if you know, Jay, but I coach people just on this one question. I found out I had a knack for it. And that bitterness will come through. If it was a bitter situation for you, I suggest you make a journal and you write down your feelings, and one day you set it on fire. And but don't go into an interview with that bitterness. It will be found, especially by HR people. As Jay says, this is what they do. They assess your attitude. They will discover it. It will come out.
You're 100% correct. A trained professional, that is one of the things that they are there to assess. They're not there, assuming you're not going for an HR job, they're not there to assess your technical competence, but they are there to assess your attitude and culture fit with the organization. And they will drill in, if they detect any bitterness, they will drill in, figure it out, and eliminate you from competition. And here, my friend, who is an experienced professional, didn't even know that he was coming across as bitter. So there were things that he was saying. That's why I say, script out every position on your resume, why you left, listen to it back, and you cannot be bitter or, play a victim card. Like you're saying, talk to friends and others about if you believe you were unjustly treated, to get it out of your system. And then you cannot bring that into an interview. A skilled interviewer will ferret it out and you won't get the job.
So Jay, thank you very much for your time. Just want to tell everybody, career if you have any career say, we're putting on training 4 days a week. Tomorrow for Effective Resume Thursday, on the third Thursday of the month, we'll talk about effective resumes with Susan Gray. She's a global talent acquisition and attraction leader. So she'll be with us tomorrow at 1 o'clock. This Friday at the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group meeting, negotiations, how to negotiate that deal. We'll be talking about that with Crystal Yates this Friday at 9:30. And if you want to join us next Friday at 9:30, Jay will be back to talk about effective networking. So we get to see Jay twice in 1 month, which will
Unbelievable.
be unbelievable. How exciting that'll be. Next Tuesday, LinkedIn Tuesday. LinkedIn, present yourself like a pro. I'll be doing the presentation next Tuesday. And Mark, you want to talk a little bit about the interview workshops that are already pre-recorded?
Yeah, let me just say a few words about that. So on the Career USA channel, Zoom, YouTube channel, there are recordings of 13 sessions that Walt and I have prepared when we started to meet virtually, put together a bunch of educational material. And so here's what you're going to find, because it helps to know, what's there so you can go directly to it. So the first 5 sessions in the series were all about before you interview, preparing to interview. So that's how important it is. And Jay pointed that out as well. Preparing for a specific interview and also preparing in general for interviewing, how to come up with the star stories, how to be prepared for video interviewing, how to analyze a job description. Those are some of the topics in the first 5. And then the second group of 5, 6 through 10, are all about effective interviewing. And so there's some things in here that Jay talked about, demonstrating enthusiasm and opening and closing the interview. So discussing compensation. Each one of these sessions is about an hour and a half long. So that'll give you some insight into how much detail is provided on each of these topics. And then the final 3 are some special topics that build upon the previous 10. So it'd be good if you'd already looked at some or all of those before you delve into these. But informational interviews is one, and then we summarize all the kind of difficult questions and situations that come up in interviewing in one session. And then the final one, which is a good one, you could probably look at this anytime, is even though we teach this stuff and other people teach it, and you come to these sessions and you learn things, you make the same mistakes all the time. Walt mentioned, using the same tired phrases keeping, telling too long a story, there's just a whole list of maybe 15 things that almost everybody does, even though they know they shouldn't. So we go over those and we tell you how to avoid them, how to compensate.
So on the Career USA YouTube channel looks something like this. Click on playlist, because every video that I post, I stick into a particular playlist. And then down below, you can pick whichever list you want. Instead of clicking on the video, click view full playlist, and then up will come a list of all the different titles, topics, and dates that we've talked about these things. You can go back, scroll down, and find whatever you'd like to go back and view. If you're not receiving emails about our workshops and you'd like to join the Career USA mailing list, you're welcome to do so. Just send an email to Career USA, +subscribe @groups.io. You will not get spammed, but what you will get is the topic of the day, the title of the day, and most importantly, the Zoom link of the day. That way you can grab your lunch or breakfast and sit and watch our presentations every day, not have to go search for it someplace. Just please remember, Career FW, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We have no full or part-time employees. I'm a volunteer. Jay volunteered to present today. Career FW survives on donations. Please consider making one when you get your next job. So thank you very much for joining us again today. Jay, once again, thank you very much, and we'll see you hopefully later in the week.